Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and here is your detailed weather forecast update for Thursday, August 21st, 2025. It's a detailed forecast update on the low pressure system situated over New South Wales, bringing that torrential rainfall to southeast Queensland and much of coastal New South Wales. The heaviest rainfall is expected today, and we are expecting some widespread rainfall accumulations as much as 150 millimetres, with major flood watches and warnings already in effect across the northeast of the state. All the details on this weather system, plus a whole lot more coming up in today's weather forecast update. If you are brand new to the channel, please do consider subscribing, but let's get stuck straight into things this morning for your Thursday morning. Situated over the central parts of New South Wales, just outside of Cobar and Dubbo this morning, is this large low pressure system, as I'm sure everybody is aware of now, bringing in a lot of moisture through Queensland and then down the New South Wales coastline, especially in the last 10 hours. Also, some very significant rainfall observations are now beginning to build through parts of New South Wales, in particular through the Illawarra coastline, extending into the Metro coastline and even parts of the Hunter and Mid-North coastline have copped some pretty significant falls overnight. As you can see down in this part of the screen, rainfall accumulations through the Illawarra coastline have been between that 60 to 100 millimetre mark over the last 24 hours. Rainfall accumulations have also been heavy through the northeastern part of New South Wales, in particularly north of Coffs Harbour, with a rain train now beginning to develop this morning, and that's the same deal over the border into the Gold Coast and even parts of the Sunshine Coast as well. Caloundra yesterday morning picked up 95 millimetres of rainfall. The Gold Coast has already picked up 90 millimetres of rainfall this morning, and a whole lot more is expected to come throughout the remainder of today, even for the Sunshine Coast, but also down into the Gold Coast, where the heaviest falls are expected to occur. This isn't an east coast low. It's not a typical large low pressure system into the Tasman Sea. Winds aren't that strong, and there is no severe weather warnings current for this weather system here, but this rainfall is definitely some significant stuff coming through, and considering the saturated catchments across a wide swathe of northeastern and central New South Wales, this rainfall is cause for concern. Even though it is comparative to some other weather systems that New South Wales has seen, even in the last 3 months, the rainfall isn't actually all that heavy. Let's talk about the rainfall right now, because it is of course the main factor of this forecast update. Starting things off with a look at the standard forecast model here, the European, you can see that low pressure system is expected to continue drawing closer to the coastline throughout the remainder of today, and that's going to bring that rainfall heavier and heavier throughout the remainder of the morning and into this afternoon to these coastal areas. The heaviest falls today are expected south of the Queensland New South Wales border, through the northeast of New South Wales, but especially between Coffs Harbour down to about Newcastle. We're expecting some very heavy falls into the hilly and mountainous terrain adjacent to the coastline, and also from heavy showers and rain trains that we're seeing developing right now further north into the northeast of New South Wales. Significant rainfall accumulations are definitely expected. The rainfall is going to transition to more of a steady but heavy flow of moisture coming into the central parts of New South Wales, in particular around the Sydney area, and then south through the Illawarra coastline through Wollongong and then down to Ulladulla. So rainfall accumulations are not likely to be as downpourish and as crazy as what they're going to be across the mid-north coast and into the northeast, but we're still likely to see some pretty significant rainfall accumulations today and into tomorrow morning into this pocket of New South Wales as well. I'm expecting a period of significant rainfall to develop after about 2 or 3 o'clock this afternoon. That's going to persist late into tonight, into very early tomorrow morning, most likely beginning to ease off and pull away from the coastline at about 2 or 3 o'clock tomorrow morning. So we're expecting a 12-ish hour period of on and off very heavy falls to develop later this afternoon, somewhere along the New South Wales coastline, and right now that looks to be most likely between Coffs Harbour down to about Foster or Taree. Definitely between Kempsey and Taree looks to be getting some pretty significant rainfall accumulations as well, and then again down around the Sydney area and then into the Illawarra coastline. This isn't exactly like a typical weather event, like a typical low pressure system for New South Wales, where we see rainfall more coming in from the east or even the southeast. This rainfall is coming in places from the north, so it is a little bit hard to say exactly how heavy the rainfall is going to be, but for locations such as southwest Rocks here, south of Nambucca Heads, where they kind of jut out a little bit, that's where we're likely to see some very significant rainfall accumulations, given the nature of this more northerly or northeasterly flow of moisture coming down. So it's a bit of an interesting one. It's not something we see every day. It's certainly not something that I've tracked in the last 2 or 3 years for New South Wales. And that also puts locations such as Foster and even Port Macquarie to a degree at risk of some pretty significant rainfall accumulations, and then that kind of falls apart south of Sydney. Newcastle and the Hunter region, interestingly, seem to be quite protected from this rainfall here, and whilst some good falls are still possible into the Hunter region, especially through the Barrington Tops, rainfall accumulations are likely to be much heavier further north and further south of the Newcastle, Gosford and Hunter region, or wider Hunter region. But yeah, rain trains expected across southeast Queensland as well. We are looking at some significant falls there throughout this morning and into early this afternoon, and then again once again later tonight into very early tomorrow morning, before, as you can see on Friday, this rainfall finally pulls away from the New South Wales and Queensland coastline, and much lighter falls are expected through Friday. But the rainfall starts up again on Saturday for parts of the New South Wales coastline as a Tasman Sea low pressure system begins to get itself going. I saw some talk that this was going to be classified as as an east coast low. It's not going to be anywhere near as strong as that. This is going to be a very weak and battered remnant to this rainfall event, this low pressure system that develops on Saturday, and another 25 millimeters looks to be possible through Saturday morning and into Saturday afternoon from showers and storms sweeping up on the western side of the system here into the New South Wales central and south coast, especially through the Illawarra forecast district, but in particularly north of the metro and up to the Hunter region as well. Some more semi-decent rainfall accumulations. Definitely not rainfall that we're looking for, that's for sure. The convective forecast models also paint a very good picture of exactly how much rainfall is coming through, and it's good that the convective forecast model encompasses the entirety of the New South Wales coastline. But I'm just going to play this through and run over it very quickly. You can see that very high resolution take of the rainfall coming through. Like I said, very heavy tonight expected south of Coffs Harbour, in particularly south of Kempsey down towards Taree. And it also looks like a heavy spot could develop north of Coffs Harbour down up to Grafton and Yamba as well. Again, I wouldn't be putting as much money on the heavy rainfall developing there. And as you can see, more moderate or light moderate falls expected through the Illawarra forecast district, and again the majority of the rainfall clearing after about midnight and then properly easing off through early tomorrow morning. It's going to linger around the coastline, but it should remain offshore for the most part throughout the entirety of tomorrow, and that's going to lead to slightly lighter rainfall accumulations than what we were looking at a couple of days ago. The convective forecast models also paint a very accurate picture in terms of rainfall accumulations, and let's start in the north and head further south, but I can trust this forecast model a lot, the Access convective here, for Sydney, especially in a situation like this. And I imagine this is exactly what the rainfall outcome is going to look like. So starting in the Gold Coast, some significant rainfall observations have been reported there, as everybody is aware. Widespread falls between 50 to 70 millimetres already this morning, and falls already approaching 90 millimetres. On top of that, we could see a further 125 millimetres in places, and I would not be surprised if we saw a pocket into the Gold Coast hinterland pushing 150 or 160 millimetres or so from this rainfall event. It is definitely looking to be a lot wetter through the Gold Coast than what we were initially expecting. Thank goodness that flooding isn't expected to be too much of a concern until we start talking about those very excessive rainfall accumulations that are highly unlikely to occur. Rainfall accumulations across the border through Murray-Willumbah, Tweed Heads, and then down to Byron Bay and Ballina. We're looking at falls between 50 to 80 millimetres along the coastline, pushing closer to 125 millimetres in a few pockets, in particular around Tweed Heads and Murray-Willumbah, again on locations that stick out there. Byron Bay could also see triple figure rainfall accumulations, and then falls do drop off a little bit into this more protected section of the coastline here, this more sheltered section of the coastline through Yamba and Grafton, with about 50 millimetres apiece expected for both location. Coffs Harbour down to Nambucca Heads and Kempsey, we're looking at widespread falls between 25 to 75 millimetres here throughout the remainder of this morning, pushing closer to 125 millimetres later tonight. And I wouldn't be surprised if we were waking up tomorrow morning to 9 a.m. rainfall accumulation south of Coffs Harbour, well in excess of triple figures through a few spots. But for the most part, 100 millimetre rainfall accumulations looks to be what we're going to end up with around Coffs Harbour, Nambucca Heads, and then down through Kempsey and down to Port Macquarie. Rainfall accumulations will then pick up again around the Kempsey and Port Macquarie area, very likely to see triple figure rainfall accumulations there, and likely pushing closer to 150 millimetres in a few spots there. Foster is also likely to be very wet, probably about 125 millimetres for Foster is what the forecast is suggesting right now, and again a few accumulations also around Foster, probably pushing closer to 150 millimetres now on the forecast models as well. As mentioned, rainfall drops off a little bit for the New South Wales Hunter region and into the southern reaches of the mid-north coast. Falls between 10 to 50 millimetres looks to be expected around Gosford and Newcastle rather, and that will extend north to the Nelson Bay area. Rainfall then picks up again south of Gosford through Sydney, Wollongong, Nowra, Jervis Bay, and then down to Ulladulla and Batemans Bay, with widespread falls between 40 to 80 millimetres expected for either location in this little pocket of New South Wales, with isolated rainfall accumulations to 120 millimetres also a possibility. And I would just like to finish off the rainfall forecast by saying Sydney is well on track for one of its wettest August months on record. In fact, the all-time rainfall record for August, which also makes which also makes the wettest month in recorded history for Sydney, is 486 millimetres back in, I believe it was 1953. That was driven by a 380 millimetre one-day rainfall accumulation. It definitely looks like Sydney is on track. They've right now got about 300 millimetres in the rain gauge for August. It would take a mammoth push to get over towards the record, but it wouldn't take much of a push to get them over the 400 millimetre mark, and I would not be surprised if Sydney was walking away with at least a 400 millimetre dump for this August, but also approaching near record-breaking rainfall for the month of August, if not record-breaking rainfall. Keep in mind, it's only the 21st of August today, so we still have another 9 or 10 days of August still to go behind this, and there is a little bit more rainfall on the forecast a little bit later on. You can see that quite clearly here into the last couple of days of August. Some more showers are definitely possible across the New South Wales coastline, with a weak low pressure system possible into the Tasman Sea, but nothing too crazy is expected at this point in time. Definitely stay dry and stay alert across New South Wales today. There are major flood warnings and watches in effect for the northeast of the state, especially through the northwest slopes in the wake of snowfall through those locations, and significant rainfall moving into the Tamworth and Armidale area again this morning. Moderate flood warnings and watches are currently in effect across a wide swathe of the mid-north coastline, and then again into the northeast of New South Wales. Some significant flooding is expected through those locations, and minor flood watches and warnings are extending right down to the Sydney metro area. So again, make sure that you are in the know about what flood watches and warnings are in effect for your location. Remember, if it is flooded, forget it, and make sure you are adequately prepared for the rainfall that's coming through. Normally 100 to 150 millimeters of rainfall, we wouldn't even bat an eyelid, but considering the volume of rainfall and the volume of water that New South Wales has seen in the last couple of months, in fact just the last 5 years as well, it really is cause for concern, and that's why we're going so crazy with the flood forecast. Even though this really isn't too much in the way of rainfall for New South Wales, it's nothing that they haven't seen before, that's for sure. As I zoom out to encompass the entirety of southern Australia, you can see a strong cold front beginning to develop here into the Great Australian Bight. That really gave Perth a good whack yesterday, and that is pushing deep into the Great Australian Bight this morning, with a few showers now approaching the Eyre Peninsula of South Australia. This isn't expected to be too much of a strong cold front. It definitely was for Western Australia, but this is more of a show pony type weather system, especially for South Australia, Western Victoria, and also for Tasmania. A few good showers are most certainly possible throughout the west coast of Tasmania later tomorrow afternoon and into tomorrow evening, and we could be going through Friday and into early Saturday morning with 25 or 30 millimeters in the gauges across the west coast of Tasmania. But they're no stranger to that rainfall, and that definitely isn't cause for concern. But the west coast of Victoria, or the western half of Victoria rather, and the south coast of South Australia, really not looking at more than about 5 or 6 millimeters of rainfall from this weather event here. There's nothing much to talk about. Then a strong high pressure system builds over Tasmania. That will keep things cool once again this weekend. Another cold front moving into the Great Australian Bight through Monday and Tuesday. This one's likely to pack a little bit more of a punch, and some significant snowfall accumulations are most certainly possible after about Tuesday, especially through the Victorian Alps and into the New South Wales high country, and just with a cold air pool that's expected to move over the Bass Strait and into Tasmania and Victoria and New South Wales through Wednesday, Thursday and Friday next week. It definitely looks like some great snowfall accumulations are possible into the last couple of days of August, and some good rainfall accumulations will also go with that, with widespread falls between 10 to 40 millimeters expected across rural Victoria and across much of southern South Australia, and across a wide swathe of Tasmania as well, where we could be seeing falls up to 100 millimeters onto the west coast. It definitely looks like as that southern alien mode swings around to favour these cold fronts riding a lot further north, that next week is going to be quite turbulent, especially thereafter from Tuesday. And I'll see if I can get a rainfall forecast loading up here, but you can see week-long rainfall accumulations looking to be very healthy after about Tuesday as well. Widespread falls between 10 to 40 millimeters over a wide swathe of Victoria, and that increases to about 80 millimeters for coastal and elevated areas, and falls up to 150 millimeters possible across the west coast of Tasmania. So again, very good rainfall indeed. And that also goes hand in hand with snowfall accumulations. Some very good dumps expected for late August across the New South Wales high country, pushing 30 centimetres around Thredbo, and then around 15 to 25 centimetres around Mount Hotham and into Victoria as well. So some great snowfall there. And even Tasmania not missing out on the snowy fun as well. 40 centimetres of snow expected through the west coast of Tasmania, and that snow level is looking very likely to drop very low with these strong cold fronts moving through. And into the southwest of Western Australia, definitely in keeping with that southern annular mode shifting, a strong cold front is expected to come in later this weekend. We're actually expecting some pretty significant rainfall to develop across parts of the Gascoyne into the interior Goldfields and Wheatbelt districts through Saturday, and that could mean parts of the Goldfields, especially towards the east of that Merredin or Cunderdin in the Wheatbelt, could pick up some significant rainfall accumulations on Saturday afternoon onwards. Falls between 5 to 15 millimetres, with isolated totals pushing close to 25 millimetres, before that strong cold front approaches from the west on Sunday morning, reaching the Perth metro area before about midday. In fact, reaching the Perth metro area probably closer to about 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. This one looks like it could pack a punch. Some strong wind gusts and definitely some isolated blocks of heavy rainfall expected, pushing deep out into the Wheatbelt through Sunday night, and it is going to get cold, especially as this big air mass sweeps in behind it through Sunday night into Monday morning. Cold temperatures, small hailstones, heavy showers, plenty of cold air moving through, and potentially even some snow once again for the Stirling Ranges as we push through Monday and into Tuesday. Showers, in fact, expected to keep going quite strong through Monday and then into Tuesday as well, so it's going to be quite a cold week. A few showers expected through Wednesday and Thursday before conditions finally begin to dry out. It looks like another cold front is possible into the first couple of days of September, but the details around that one are still quite murky at this point in time. So let's talk about those rainfall accumulations right now. 5-day falls between Saturday the 23rd out to Wednesday the 27th inclusive. Good falls around the Perth metro area as well. We're looking at about 70 millimetres of rainfall, and about 30 of that's going to come through from the initial front on Sunday Sunday rather, and then about 30 to 40 millimeters of that will be coming through from the showers coming in behind it. Rainfall isn't expected to be that heavy out into the wet belt. Widespread falls between 5 to 15 millimeters expected. Rainfall will pick up again from those falls coming in through on Saturday afternoon across parts of the extreme eastern wheat belt and then into the goldfields and Gascoyne and Pilbara regions as well. We could be seeing some half decent falls through there, and then rainfall accumulation is also expected to be quite healthy onto the south coast as well. The atmosphere will be cold enough through Sunday night into Monday morning to produce snow across the Stirling Ranges and perhaps even the Paronga Up Ranges as well. I'm not going to pull the trigger on a forecast just yet, but it definitely looks like it could get cold enough for some snowfall accumulations, some very light accumulations here and there. So that is an aspect of the forecast that I'll be watching very, very closely indeed. But heaps of stuff happening around Australia. Even though we're meant to be in our quiet months, there's plenty happening across the east coast, and it is a sign of things to come. The long-range forecast has updated. It's no longer expecting September to be as torrentially wet as what we were once expecting. Definitely expecting a wet start to September, though, across a wide swathe of the eastern states. But it's going to be October, storm season's finest month, or one of storm season's finest months, already tipped to be more active than usual rainfall-wise, and I imagine that's going to trickle over into storm-wise as well. Plenty to talk about going forward, and if you do want to be a part of it, then click the subscribe button down below and leave a like on the video while you're at it. A special shout out, of course, additional sponsors. Their names are on screen right now. They're going to not on the show about them, so of course their support is, as always, massively appreciated. That's going to do it for me today. One more day or 2 more days of the week after today, one more day of the week, so enjoy the rest of the week and have a great weekend from me. That's going to be all from me today. I'll catch you on the next storm.